Welcome, Gunrunner.
Here's an easy question for you. Which of these games is the closest thing to the real thing? A, Intellivision Major League Baseball. B, Atari Baseball. Here they are again, close up. A, Intellivision. B, Atari. If you thought A, Intellivision, you're absolutely correct. You see, I told you this question was easy.
Hello everybody, Q&A the Lord here, and I've got a rather lovely hardware review for you today, and this is actually my very latest pickup. I got this on Facebook Marketplace very recently, and to say I am pleased with it is probably the biggest understatement ever, because this was absolute bargain of the century, to be honest. I paid £120 for this. It came with around 30 boxed games, all in amazing condition. I've got the IntelliVoice, I've got all sorts of other bits and pieces, which I'll show you. So, yes, very big bargain. And as you can see, it is a Mattel Intellivision console. The original model with the wood grain finish. In its box had all the polystyrene, all the leaflets, everything with it in amazing condition. Almost like it's barely been used. It's certainly been well looked after for a long time. The lady I bought it from was quite an old lady, and she said she'd had it many years stored in her loft. It had obviously been stored very well. So yes, pretty pleased with this. And as you can see, that's the box. I put it there. It's a bit large though, so it takes up most of the camera. And I've laid out some of the games I got behind it, but I'll just quickly show you the back of the box as well. That tells you some stuff about it, which is pretty cool. Really nice to see that box and get a much better view like that, where you can see the console and all the games. So yes, as I say, this is the original model of the Intellivision. There was a Model 2 that was smaller and white, and there was also later on there was a Model 3 after Mattel sold the rights to the Intellivision and the new company INTV Corp was set up. Do not confuse though the Model 3 Intellivision with the unreleased Intellivision 3 console, because they're not the same thing. While the remodel was actually called the Intellivision 2, there was no improvements on it other than the new design. The Model 3 was just a redesign of the Model 2. I believe it was just cost reduced again. There was planned an Intellivision 3, which was a much more powerful console. And if you want to know more about that, I actually did an entire documentary chronicling the Intellivision 3 and indeed the planned Intellivision 4 that was supposed to come after that, because the Intellivision 3 hardware was actually finished and they'd already started planning out the Intellivision 4. So yes, if you want to know more about that, click the link in the top right hand corner or follow the link in the description, and you can watch my documentary on the unreleased Intellivision 3. But back to the original Intellivision. So released in 1979, this was really the first true competitor to the Atari 2600, and sold very well to start with, despite having a much higher price, because Mattel did some rather clever advertising to get it off the ground, and backed it up with some really good software as well. So yeah, it quickly moved into the number 2 space in the American market, and a European launch followed later, as well as a Japanese launch actually in the Mattel. The Intellivision was marketed by Bandai, believe it or not, in Japan. Actually, I've done a whole video talking about Bandai's history of consoles as well, including some unreleased models. So again, if you want to know more about that, follow the link in the top right hand corner or follow the link in the description. I'll put it down there as well if you want to watch this video uninterrupted. So there we go. you can learn a little bit more about the Japanese Intellivision and Bandai's other consoles. So yes, so this is the original. This is a European model. The Intellivision didn't sell particularly well in Europe or the UK, mainly because it was very, very, very expensive. It was initially distributed by Telegames and a couple of other people as well. Smaller companies. I think Telegames were the first people who marketed it in the UK on behalf of Intellivision. And I actually have a booklet with this one, which I actually might just show you now while I'm talking about it. And this one shows that it came from Silica Shop, which I thought was brilliant to see. The original Silica Shop, there was just one originally, which was in Sidcup in Kent. So you can see it there. That was the first Silica Shop. Then they spread out, got a few more branches. They had one in London and stuff like that. And then they spread out even more because they got a concession in Debenhams. Some people may remember Silica Shops in Debenhams department stores, and I certainly do, because I used to go to the Debenhams in Luton, which had a Silica Shop, and indeed I bought my Jaguar CD from Silica Shop in Debenhams, and many Jaguar games as well, actually. So I was a regular in there. So this was really cool to see this booklet. You can see, it's like a catalogue that shows all the games. I've never seen one of these before, so this was really cool to see. One of my cats is going to make an appearance. So that's, how my cats like to appear in my videos. That's Rufus. We've got two kittens, so a brother and sister, both tabbies. And that's one of them, that's Rufus. And the other one, his sister, has now started pulling all the packaging off the table. So I apologise if you heard a loud noise then. That was her pulling all the packaging off the table to kill it. Because as you know, kittens will kill absolutely anything. But I'll show you more of this catalogue. So there we go. And that's pretty cool. And I've also got an official Mattel Catalog here as well, which is obviously all in colour. So to show you that, this is very similar to the Atari 2600 ones. Actually did a whole video on those if you're interested in that. So it shows all the games, especially stuff like the Tron games, which is obviously one of their big things, and the sports games, which is another big thing for Mattel, which I'll go on to. See, I've got a rather nice catalogue there. Here's my user manual, television master components. They called it the master components. The idea was it would be fully expandable. You'd be able to turn it into a computer with a keyboard, IntelliVoice module, various other things, connected to the internet, even with a modem. So yeah, it's actually got a little thing about sound adjustment there. They obviously stuck a separate leaflet in later on, which is quite funny. I'm going to have to stop my cats killing the packaging because it's getting very annoying. So yeah, that's the user manual that came with it. And the other thing I've got with this actually, which I thought was really unusual, is I've got these. I assume these are bundled in. I mean, these are like scorecards that you can use to record your high scores, which I think is just amazing. You put the title of the game, and there's loads of these. You can see there's a big bundle of them, and I thought that was so cool. Really cool to see them. Okay, so let's have a little look around the console. So the thing that I think stands out straight away about the Intellivision is the fact that the controllers slot into it, as you can see. Now that was part of its design. Is this whole all-in-one design? Everything fits together seamlessly. So that slides out like that, as you can see, and it's cabled in, so you can't disconnect the controller. It is hardwired right into the system there, which is obviously bad if these controllers go wrong. We'll go on to the controller a little bit more in a second. So yeah, that's how that works. They're not the easiest to get back in as well once you pulled them out. And the other one comes out like that. I just noticed actually this one has a bit of a frayed wire on it. I'm sure it still works fine. But there's the controllers that come out of the console like that. We have a reset switch here, on off there on the side. I want to get the controllers to go back in now for the moment. Go back to them in a minute. That one doesn't want to go back in. Okay. Here we go. Got it back in. No, I didn't, because it's just fallen out again. On the back, we've got our power, and we've got our standard RF socket to connect it to the TV. There's a little thing there for sound control. That was the thing with the leaflet, in the leaflet about that. Obviously, serial number, made by Mattel in Hong Kong. And there is our cartridge port on the side, not on the top, which obviously was the way that the Atari went, was having it on the top. Sorry, all the clacking there with the controllers. So these controllers, let's go back to them in a minute. So these are very unique, obviously, for the time, because most people used the joysticks, especially in the Atari used joysticks, arcade games used joysticks. All the early systems really used some kind of joystick. The Intellivision decided to go with this, which they call the disc controller. And obviously you'll see that because it has this disc which I can actually spin with my thumb, as you can see. So I believe, remember rightly, that's 16-way rather than 8-way like a joystick is, or even 4-way, some are. That's 16 ways. It's supposed to give much better control. And then you had these buttons, 1 to 90, enter clear, so everything could be controlled from the console. So whereas the Atari 2600, you had to press the reset or select or difficulty switches on the console. With the Intellivision, you could do everything from your controller because you had all these options. On the back, you can see there's nothing. On the side, you have these buttons, which are like your fire buttons. So you've got 2 of them on there and on that side as well. The same again. It looks like Rufus is trying to come back, so there he is. And it looks like there's his sister. So there's Rosie, and there's Rufus. They're only a couple of months old, bless them. They're still quite young little kittens, and obviously they're attracted by me pulling this wire. I probably should have shut them out of the room actually, but people seem to like my cats appearing in the videos. Yes, so this is the controller now. Unique design, got a lot of credit for coming up with a unique design and coming up with something very, very different. But I have to say I do not like this controller at all. Holding it and using it I find very, very painful after a while. It's very, very awkward to use. I find it very uncomfortable, especially after prolonged periods of play. I can see what they were trying to do, but yeah, I'd rather use a proper joystick any day. But obviously the interesting thing about this is this is really your first example of a joypad. Turn it on its side, what do you have? You have a joypad and buttons. You can even use it just like a joypad, and many consider this the first joypad really. Nintendo often get credited with creating the joypad. They didn't. There was others before Nintendo, other D-pads that were almost identical on various things. Probably the most notable example being the Milton Bradley Microvision handheld, which had a D-pad for some of its games. There was also a lot of handheld LCD games like by Grandstand and stuff that had D-pads as well. So yeah, it's really the earliest version of what we would now know as a joypad. I think that's pretty much certain. Some people argue that. I don't. I think it's very much where the joypad came from was this. So it's a very important controller for that reason, even if I don't particularly like using them. Now, another thing I'm going to show you right now is because it's quite interesting. Is these? I've got 2 of these in the box. These came with my they came with the console. Point Master Quick Stick. I've never seen these things before. They look quite worn, so it looks like they've actually been used quite a lot. You can see they've been, quite worn. I'm not sure if that's dirt or there's a lot of it is actually scuffs. So they've obviously used a hell of a lot by whoever owned this back in the day. Probably because they didn't like the controller. But I'll just try and show you. So all you do is literally slide it on top. If I can get it to go on, which I can't. Max is still intent on wrecking all the packaging. So there we go, I've got it on. So yeah, and then you've turned it into a joystick of some description. I wouldn't imagine these worked that well, but considering how well used they are, that suggests they probably did work quite well. But there we go, there's a joystick add-on, which is quite cool. And another famous accessory for the Intellivision, which I've got right here, so I'll show you that, is the Intellivoice add-on, which allowed a lot of your games to speak. As you can see, it plugs into the cartridge socket on the side, and then you can plug a cartridge into that. Again, this is in immaculate condition, in all the original packaging inside. So there we have our Intellivoice voice synthesis module. So there were games that specifically used this, has its own control on the side of it there. So we can fit that in like this. So there we go, we've got our Intellivoice slotted in, and then the cartridge, actually you'll see, goes on the side of that. There's a new cartridge port because it plugs into your cartridge port. So there's Intellivoice. Probably the most famous game that used the Intellivoice, of course, which you can see at the back here, was B-17 Bomber. There was many others, but that's easily the most well known. And you'll see on there it says it talks, and they've got it in other languages as well, like Le Bombardier, which is obviously French. So yes, but we'll go on to the games in a moment. So yes, we mentioned the games a little bit, but let's take a look even more. So on the left here, you can see I've lined up some of the actual Mattel releases. They've all got those same boxes with the static colours. There's not many colours. There's red, there's yellow ones, there's orange, green, I think purple, and they look kind of cool actually on the shelf because of the way they were coloured like that. So you'll use this very, very standard design, quite iconic artwork, I think, with the big circles, all hand drawn, really, really nice. Not quite as nice, I don't think, as Atari 2600 art, but very nice nonetheless. And what's interesting about these is I think they call them gatefold boxes, because you'll see that the front opens, and there you've got your instruction manual, and of course, importantly, controller overlays. Yes, so you could put these on the controller. I'll show you how that works. So literally there's a small, very, very small slot on the top of here. The camera will focus, which it won't particularly well. And then you just slide it down. So there we go, soccer. And obviously that gives you the speed or your difficulty settings. It tells you that those side buttons are pass and shoot. Now Daisy's coming into the picture. Those who watch my videos remember Daisy as a little kitten, causing havoc in a lot of my videos. She's now my biggest cat. She's absolutely huge. And you'll see she looks like she's a lynx or something. She looks like a big cat. She's absolutely massive now. It's hard to believe that she was the little kitten that appeared in so many of my early videos. Well, not early videos, but some of the early ones on this version of the channel. She was in a newer channel. So that's how the overlays work. So as I say, these gatefold boxes, they hold the cartridge and the instructions and your overlays. And see, that's a cardboard behind, but they have these plastic trays. They're quite often missing, I've found. I've picked up some games in the past that have got those missing. And there's the cartridges. Quite small compared to Atari 2600 cartridges. They're a little bit smaller. Just slot into the side. And that's the games. I'm not sure if this is any different. No, so there we go. But that has a gold label to signify that it's something a bit special. Our box is slightly different. And of course, there were third parties that released games. For example, Imagic, this is a copy of Atlantis. Activision supported it as well, and CBS Electronics. I've got Donkey Kong, for example, somewhere for this as well. This box is slightly different because it comes out as a tray like that with our instructions. See, it comes at the bottom, instruction manual. We've got a nice Imagic, Mattel and Atari video game system thing, and there's our cartridge in the box. And that's a bit different because that's an Imagic cartridge, so it has the Imagic design, the same as the Atari 2600 ones, and the overlay is underneath. So the third parties use their own designs of boxes just to be awkward, but they still look great. I do particularly like these the Magic boxes because I love the silver effect, and I think they look really, really cool. And yeah, I mean, the games library is actually really, really diverse on the Intellivision, because you've got, you know, well-known titles like, you know, Atlantis, which of course came out in the Atari 2600. You know, Donkey Kong, which I already mentioned. You know, there's quite a few well-known arcade conversions on there. But you also had some of Mattel's original games, like probably Night Stalker is one of the most famous, definitely. There's also stuff like Astro Smash, which I've got as well somewhere. That's probably still in the box. I didn't bring that one down. So there's some other really famous ones. Then you've got, say, Mattel released some arcade conversions, exclusive ones like Lock and Trace, which actually did later release in the Atari 2600 as well. We've also got a lot of strategy games, which is something the Atari 2600 definitely didn't have, like Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, which you can see there, which is really, really cool. Obviously, that was the first Dungeons and Dragons game. There we go. To have a little look inside. There's also Utopia. It's another quite well-known strategy game. And one thing the Intellivision big time specialised in was the sports games, with the classic advert with George Plimpton, which I have snuck into this video at the beginning because I thought it was relevant and cool. And a lot of, not so much over here in the UK and Europe, but the Americans will probably no doubt be very, very familiar with the sports commentator George Plimpton in his adverts to show the supposed superiority of the Intellivision sports games over the Atari 2600 sports games. And in the early years, they were definitely a lot better. Not only better games, you know, better graphics, better sound, but also Mattel were the first people to make licensed sports games. So, for example, although that one is only soccer there, the American version is actually NASL soccer. So they licensed it from the North American Soccer League. They did PJ Golf long before EA even thought of doing that. They did NFL football, so you had an official license in the NFL as well, which is a pretty big thing. So they did that with a lot of their sports games. They got some sort of license, even like bowling and skiing and stuff like that carried licenses from, you know, the US ski team or National Bowling League or something like that. But yeah, so they were big into getting the licenses and getting the brand recognition. Obviously later, Atari came out with the Real Sports series and kind of improved on the Intellivision sports games actually. But by then, I mean, that's when, you know, the Intellivision started to lose popularity thanks to the video game crash anyway. And although it was supported, you know, almost pretty much right up until the NES years, I mean, it was supported into the late 80s, believe it or not, by the new company INTV Corp, with new games, and they but it was only really available via mail order through those years rather than being available in the shops. But it still, you know, has a pretty interesting legacy, a really interesting games library, and there's a lot there to like about the Intellivision. So I guess our final wrap up is the Intellivision worth owning in the present day? As always, my end bit, and I think it depends. I almost want to say yes, but I think it depends. because I think there are a lot of people out there who find Atari 2600 games a bit basic, and I think if you're one of those people, then you're probably going to feel the same way about the Intellivision, and you're probably going to struggle even more by using these controllers. I mean, I know some people who find using the Atari joysticks awkward, so you're going to really struggle with these disc controllers because they really are something quite different, and I do think that lets the Intellivision down. And the fact that they hardwired them in meant that there wasn't all these third-party controllers available, which I think you would have got had they not done that. Like with the Atari 2600, you could get quick shot joysticks and all sorts of different things to use with it. And unfortunately, that was a big mistake with Mattel's design, I think, not to have joystick ports, so you could go and buy an actual joystick or a different type of controller. So yeah, I think if you find, say the Atari 2600 too simple, then you're going to find the Intellivision too simple. However, if like me, you like to collect classic consoles and you like to have the best of the classic consoles, then yes, the Intellivision is worth owning. If you grew up with an Atari 2600 and loved the Atari 2600, then you're probably going to like the Intellivision too, because there's a lot of very similar styles of games. There is obviously some crossover with the libraries, games that run both, but in many cases you will find the Intellivision versions are better. So, Night Stalker and Astro Smash are on both, for example, Mattel games. The Mattel versions are better. Some of the Activision games that are also in the Intellivision, like Pitfall, the Mattel version is better. Commandos on the Intellivision, the 2600, the Intellivision version is better. So yeah, not always, but you will generally find that the Intellivision versions of games are better than the Atari 2600 ones. All the Tron games is probably another good example. They were made to the Intellivision. You've got the cool things like the IntelliVoice and stuff like that as well. So yeah, it is a really nice console. I think it has a real point of difference from a lot of the other consoles. I think that's one of the cool things about these early consoles, is they were all trying to do something a little bit different, and they were really trying to create a point of difference with the Intellivision to the Atari 2600, and especially the controllers are probably the most notable part of that. But yeah, that rounds up my review of the Intellivision. If you owned one of these, I'd love to hear your own memories of it in the comments. I hope you liked this video. I've been the Laird, and I'll see you all again for another video very soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.